Hello, and welcome to another episode of Solipsist Watched. I'm your host, the Social Solipsist, and this week I watched War Dogs from 2016. Now, I'm not entirely sure why I ended up watching this. I believe what happened is somebody mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, and I threw it back on the list of like, oh yeah, I kind of was curious what happened with that. I recall pretty distinctly when the ads for this were airing that my immediate judgment of it off of the trailers, which, as I've mentioned before, I typically don't watch, but I think I was forced to watch the trailer as an ad at some point or another. The trailer to me made me think this is not very this is not a very appealing movie visually, and this trailer is edited like it doesn't have a lot to offer, and they're trying to boost its profile in the trailer edit. And ultimately, I think I may have judged it too harshly. However, I don't think I judged it wrong. This story is apparently based on a true story of true deals and real guys. I don't know all the details of the story behind this. I actually don't know how the original script was optioned. I believe this was actually written by the director, Todd Phillips, but I assume it's based on either reporting or a book. I'm not sure exactly. It's pretty thin. We'll start with that. The story doesn't have a ton going on. And that is all the more baffling given that it is sort of based on a true story. Now, I kind of hate the whole based on a true story thing. I don't think there's any reason why that should be a draw for people. And more often than not, I don't think that, I think if anything, it makes for less interesting stories because it is in some way limited by the realm of fiction. Obviously, there are artistic choices that are made in adaptation to make things more interesting, but ultimately, you'll always be able to tell a better story making it up than basing on reality. You might not be able to invent something, truth is stranger than fiction and all that, but I digress. What's very weird is that there clearly must have been a lot going on in these two guys' lives for all these things to happen, and yet so little of it is carried into the film plot-wise that it's just kind of confusing. I don't know if there was an earlier version that went into more detail and they just dumbed it down for Hollywood, or if it was just this dumb from the beginning. But the plot basically, I don't think this is a spoiler to say, the plot basically comes down to we did a few small deals, then we tried to do a big deal and we got caught. That's the whole thing. That's it. It's like it's very rudimentary. But obviously, the world of arms dealing is incredibly in depth, and there are ample opportunities for them to have explored any aspect of that, and they really didn't do that at all. I have to, of course, draw comparison to at least one movie, and I'm going to do two. The direct, obvious comparison is going to be Lord of War. A different film, tonally and, structurally, but the inevitable comparison. And Lord of War is not a perfect film, but it's pretty good. And it's a lot more interesting than this one. If you'd never watched either one, I would absolutely say, yeah, Lord of War is pretty good. Watch that one. Don't touch this one. And that's not to say this one has no redeeming factors. It's just it's a shadow comparatively. The other thing I'd compare it to is The Wolf of Wall Street, where you're telling a story from the perspective of somebody who is the protagonist, kind of, but ultimately not the good guy. But The Wolf of Wall Street is much more interesting. At the very least, it's more spectacular. It is kind of funny that Jonah Hill is in both of them as a rather major character, but we'll get to the acting in a moment. The Wolf of Wall Street is pretty great. I've got some more problems with it than some people do, but it's comparatively speaking a pretty great film. Holy cow! I just realized that's The Wolf of Wall Street was 2013. Yikes, that puts it all in all the worse perspective, given that it came out 3 years before this film. Anyway, I digress. And I don't feel like this film does a lot to play on the we're actually the bad guys aspect of this. Or even, not even, I mean, that's a little too black and white, but like, the gray areas of semi-legal to illegal arms trading and how that ties into international geopolitics and the war industry, which are all things that Lord of War touches on, but like could have been a really good because clearly this film is going for more of a crime comedy tone, kind of like The Wolf of Wall Street, but it never leverages the comedy very much, and it doesn't leverage the like crime and intrigue thing very much either. It doesn't delve into any of the niceties of the industry they're working in. It's very surface level. I would also draw another comparison to The Big Short, where it also has some parallels in terms of, well, I want it to have parallels, but it kind of doesn't. But talking about, the American situation in a particular era, and talking about the like social, societal, and economic ramifications of the goings on of mega corporations and those sorts of things is all like eminently relevant in this film as well. But this film does nothing to, use that tone that it's allegedly going for to tell more about that aspect of it. And to be fair, I'll recognize that I may be in the minority. Maybe people just want to see the escapades of two dumb white guys from the US. But the part that fascinates me about all of these other movies that I've been talking about is just that ultimately they end up being an investigation of an individual or individuals plus an investigation of sort of industries and the ins and outs of odd businesses. And so for all of the artistic choice and the choices that are made and how the story is told, that makes all the difference in terms of keeping you engaged with the big air quotes drier aspects of those things. But I find that those things reel me in much more. I had a very hard time being invested in this film because I there wasn't a lot going on, and it wasn't really letting me see much beyond just the very surface level. So plot wise, could kind of leave it. The dialogue is pretty good. It's not great. It's pretty effective all the way through at delivering what it wants to deliver. There's enough, timing and banter that works well. It doesn't have quite the same really finessed kind of beautiful pacing of something done by somebody more competent. Certainly, Scorsese has a certain way of filming, to continue the Wolf of Wall Street comparison. And a quality to his directorship that is hard to beat a lot of times, but it's pretty, for all the good deliveries, it could use a little work here and there, tightening up. The acting, however, I think a lot of it is very good. And now I have to talk about Miles Teller again, who I believe I've brought up on the show before in a context that I can't remember. I don't like Miles Teller. It's personal. Like, it's just a personal thing. He's, by all accounts, does not seem to be a very nice or caring person. Not a very pleasant one to work with by all accounts that I've heard. And as of late has also a noted anti-vaxxer. So cool. Asshole. I will maintain my fuck Miles Teller train. And I'll fully concede that may color my interpretation of the film. That said, I love Whiplash. I think it's a great film. Unfortunately, both in addition to him being kind of an asshole of a person, I also don't think he's a good actor at all. I've seen him in a lot of stuff, and I don't think he does a good job. Can't think of anything I've seen him ever. I don't think I've ever seen him attempt to act. The man can barely emote. He basically makes one face. If somebody is watching this and remembers when I mentioned him before, which video it was in, I could probably go back through the archives and find it. But if anybody remembers where I mentioned him before, I'd be curious how I mentioned him before. But anyway, he's very flat. He doesn't emote. He doesn't show. He doesn't have much variability in his delivery. The best he can muster is minor surprise and/or fear, unclear, which he does about once in the film. I think he's a pretty crappy actor, in addition to being a crappy person. Jonah Hill, on the other hand, I think is underrated. And he's having his moments where he's getting more respect. But as somebody who was, sort of part of a cadre of almost exclusively comedic actors for a long time, seeing him take somewhat more serious roles, and regardless, even in comedic roles, which I would say both this one and the Wolf of Wall Street one, just still manages to show off his acting chops really well. I mean, in this film, he perfectly pulls off the greasy, in it for the money, will say anything to get things done kind of guy. He gained a bunch of weight to play this role, which I've got my own feelings on whether or not actors should sacrifice their own health for that, but I can't deny that he has my admiration for it. His physical acting is excellent as well. It's just he does a really really good job in this film, and probably is the one really major redeeming quality and the one reason I would say probably suggest somebody watch this, or not suggest, but you know what I mean. So he's great. A bunch of the minor characters are also great. There's a few bigger names, but actually the standouts are some of the guys in one of the locations in the film, who I don't know how they found those guys, but they all do a great job. They're all, I don't know if they're professional actors or not, but regardless, they are excellent. I really like a lot of the minor characters. So to that extent, the acting is really, really good. But overall, it's hampered again, like I mentioned, by the dialogue and sort of the pacing and the tone ultimately, where again, it doesn't leverage the comedy that much. It doesn't really leverage the crime that much. And it's just ultimately sort of ugly. The sets are kind of fine. They're unremarkable. They basically come in two forms, very clean and very dirty. And they're both fine. Unfortunately, the film is ugly, and it is due to deliberate bad artistic choices, I believe. For one, the cinematography is not very good. I don't have really strong feelings on Todd Phillips, and I know that, after he made this, he made Joker, and I haven't seen that yet. And I know that got a lot of praise, but I just don't know. I am very unimpressed with the cinematography here, and I'm also very unimpressed with the editing. Some of it is extremely bad, both in the cutting and framing is pretty bad, and how much of that is cinematography versus post-processing is a question. And there's a lot of really severe color grading. And it's not even like the typical B or C movie kind of thing where it's like, oh, we're in the desert, better put a weird yellow color grade on everything. No, it's like every scene, every single shot in the film has a color grade of some kind, and it is distracting. It's just bizarre. It's very hard. It's not so ugly as to be hard to watch, but it is notably not good looking. And yeah, that was really emphasized again by that initial trailer where it's like, oh God, this movie's just all blue and orange. Why is it blue and orange? Why do my eyes hurt so much after 1 minute of watching that? Obviously the trailer is a condensed, even worse version, but yeah, it's ultimately pretty ugly. Not too pleased with that. So overall, like, there's 3 other movies I would tell you to watch before this one. Lord of War, Wolf of Wall Street, and what's it called? Why can't I remember it? The big fuck. The Big Short. That's it. Forgive me. It's a little late in the evening. Anyway, there's a bunch of other films you should be watching instead. Yeah, anyway. I don't know that this one made a lot of rounds. I don't know how widely it was watched. I think it was kind of middle ground critically. So if you have watched this, certainly let me know your thoughts. Um, uh, yeah, kind of unimpressed ultimately. Not a terrible waste of my time, but not great. Anyway, thank you guys for watching another episode of Solipsist Watched. I've been the Social Solipsist, and I'll see you guys next time.